Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Brian. I'm the host of the Left of Greg show. You're going to be watching the video version of our audio podcast. Please, guys, if you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more content on there if you're already a subscriber, and a better way for us to get you guys some more stuff. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Check out our links down below to get a hold of us and to actually find out more places where you can get more information about this. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at HBPRNA. Remember, all these cases that we discuss and all the discussions that we have are through the lenses of what we call human behavior, pattern recognition, and analysis. So please like it, share it, tell your friends about it, and we hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. You should say, it says we're live.
We are in fact live, my dear friend.
Good. That means we'll go ahead and get started for today. All right. We are on Facebook Live for those of you just tuning into the audio podcast, but Greg and I are kind of going to be talking about something that we've had multiple conversations about, and kind of Greg and I have gone back and forth on a few things in terms of just training in general and police reform and training reform and what it actually looks like. We always take a human behavior approach, and one of the things that I see out there a lot is there's a lot of sexy whiz bang cool moto videos of some of the greatest training that's come a very, very long way just since in the 20 years of experience that I can speak to, which is Greg has twice that, has come a long way. And it's some of the most amazing, best training that will pretty much do not a fucking thing for you. As far as I'm concerned. And the problem that I've been having with this is we keep doing this over and over again, and none of the issues and none of the real problems ever get addressed or go away or get dealt with. And my issue with it is where we come from is we need to be training about critical thinking skill sets. And that's not being done. I know people think it's being done on a flat range with all your cool gear, but it's not. It's just simply not. You're not replicating any type of real event, and you're training for something that is statistically insignificant, meaning it's so unlikely that you're going to be in that situation that you shouldn't spend that much time training for it. Now, you might be inundated with that on your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed or on the news, but that just because something's on the news doesn't mean that's what's happening all the time. And that's the problem. And the idea with a lot of that training is you don't have to go into that much depth. I think there's a set of core competencies involved in all training that people need to go through. And if we get really, 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 really good at those core competencies, then all of that other stuff you can layer in on top of, and it actually you won't have to spend as much time in getting a proper procedures of A, B, C, or D. You won't have to spend as much time going over, hey, here's our insider threat computer cybersecurity awareness training. Hey, here's our insider threat sexual harassment training. Hey, here's our legal, moral, and ethical training. All of that stuff that you have to do and that becomes check in the box, and people listening know exactly what I'm talking about because most of it's bullshit, and you get a 4-hour PowerPoint on how to change a tire rather than going out to the parking lot and changing a damn tire. So that's what I'm talking about. But all of those competencies can be addressed and don't need as much time spending if you're really, really good at that core set of competencies. And I think that's where our bread and butter is, Greg, in teaching those core competencies, because it involves around human behavior, and anything touched or influenced by a human means you need human behavior training to understand it. And I kind of want to start off with that because I'm just tired of seeing the same old crap over and over again and the same old
Let's rant
debates.
for a minute, Brian.
We don't ever really do that because we have a clear message we're trying to get across. But at this point, I think the only way for us to cut above the bullshit noise is to really lay it out there. And the problem is all of these people that are doing this training are really, really good at what they do. And they're right, meaning what you're training and teaching on that range about your high speed stuff. Yeah, it's fucking incredible. It absolutely is. And I'm not going to argue with that or say you're bad at it or anything. What I'm telling you is if you turn every training scenario into a shoot, no shoot scenario, guess what your whole fucking life becomes? it's a shoot, no shoot. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but the world is slightly more complicated than that. You operate in a gray area. Throw black and white out the window. There's very few situations where it's black and white and it's easy. Okay. But those are so easy. You don't need to train for them because it's so flippin' obvious. Right. And the reason why I get so upset about this stuff is because everyone keeps continuing to make the same mistakes over and over. Look, there's always right now, Greg, just look at your experience. The body armor that someone gets is better today than it was 10
10
years
times.
ago. It was
10 times.
better 10 years ago than it was 10 years before that. It was
Yeah.
better 10 years ago before. So that stuff is constantly improving. Your gear, your equipment, your weapons, your whiz bang lasers and flashlights and all those optics and stuff are constantly improving. Guess what isn't improving though? All right, everything else, because we still make the same mistakes. People are still getting themselves in the trick bag. Guys and girls are doing stuff that's just wrong or causing issues that have second and third order effects that they're not understanding. And it's not because they're stupid and don't know what they're doing, right? It's because no one's teaching people how to operate, how your tactical decisions have an operational certainty and a strategic unknown. And the fact that you walking up because someone ran through a red light and you're going to contact them that leads to a city burning, yeah, it does. It fucking does. And it can be avoided. All of that can be avoided, right? It's the gift of time and distance. And we don't do that. I just saw another one this morning of some sort of pursuit. It was at this point at low speed, crashed into one vehicle, and there's another police officer trying to rip the door open and pointing a gun at it at a moving vehicle. And I'm not bashing that person. I'm bashing the fucking training that we're not focusing on. So shot out, Greg. I don't know. I
Yeah.
know we had a different plan to start this, but immediately as I
Welcome.
started talking
Welcome
about it,
to the party.
I got
Yeah.
really, really angry.
Welcome to
And
the
I'm not
party.
usually this angry this early in the morning, but I think maybe you should tighten that shot group up a little
Well,
bit
here's
for
the
me.
thing. I want everybody to know this is the only unscientific thing that I'm going to say all day. I do not judge my subject matter expertise on experience merely on my weight. So just by sheer weight, I outrank you, Brian,
You do.
and many people that are listening. At now, you have a valid point, but what I want to make sure that we understand, first of all, you hit on core competencies, and you talked about training reform. I would add to that leadership reform. I'm taking notes as you're talking. One, muscle memory isn't critical thinking and will never replace it. And with your every tactical decision creates an operational certainty. Let's just break that in half, and a strategic unknown. The second half, that means that all the amazing tactical training in the world will not increase your survivability one iota, as much as the equal measure of increased critical thinking training. In other words, the training for the real event has to have the brain training component, the human behavior component, not merely recitation of TTPs.
Right.
And if you have a channel, a lane that is called the IED lane, and at the end of it there's an IED, you're not doing yourself any favors, Brian. So I'm seeing guys do magic on I spend so little time on the internet, I have to tell you, aside from that certain site, the pay site, but we won't talk about that because I
Your
have a
OnlyFans
fetish.
account?
Yeah, exactly. So the idea, though, Brian, is that I spend very precious little time, but people are always sending me videos and
Mm-hmm.
outtakes of videos
Mm-hmm.
and saying, "What do you think? Speculate on that, fat man." And I'll tell you this, okay? So Wisconsin just got the news that the officer involved shooting that left a young man paralyzed. Okay, they're not going to prosecute the cops. Well, first of all, let's take that out of your lexicon. So the Southern Poverty Law Center will come in and say the whole reason that they're not doing it is because it was racist, hidden racism, secret racism, whatever it is. Okay, stop for a minute. Okay, that could be true. Let's put that on a shelf
Yeah,
with that could be
right,
true.
right. Let's yeah,
But
don't
then
not, you're
let's have
not sweeping off
science.
the table. Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
not, and I'm not
Right.
criticizing. I'm
Right,
just
right, right.
saying,
No,
don't
yeah.
lead with that. That's like a boxer leading with the knockout punch. It's not going to end the fight. Do you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? The other guy's going to go, "Oh, thank you for that." And so what I want to do is let's back up to the science. I saw the video from a number of different vantage points over and over and over and over. Number one rule of human behavior, Brian. If you have time to film it, you have time
Yeah.
to prevent it.
Yep.
So shut up. That's the first thing, right? First rule. Second rule is your optic nerve, your visual field, it encompasses the entire back of your head. God, Buddha, Vishnu, Allah set you up so you could see in low light, no light, that you could see in color, so you could find the things that you want to breed with and find the things that you want to eat. And here, all of a sudden, we have a person that's allegedly reaching for a knife. Well, where do you think your focus goes when you only have such a small visual field, such a small fovea centralis, such a small processing center to pixelate images for your brain? You go to the largest threat. So whether or not it was a knife, the cop saw a knife. And when that cop saw the knife and his crappy 9mm was in his hand, his brain said, there's your threat. We're going to shoot at the threat. And that's why there was a high volume of fire at an area that disabled the person for the rest of his life, but didn't kill him. Had the muscle memory training taken over, which it didn't, it wasn't good enough. The
No.
emotion-based training took over. Do you understand? And the emotion-based training you were
Well,
born with.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the
Well, I was gonna
fear,
say
the anxiety, the
that's
oh my
why I
God, I
turned into
might.
that, because there was no emotion-based training before.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you're supposed to retreat and take cover. The officer ran and fired. Start thinking about that. When you look at that, that's where the training reform comes from, Brian. The idea that a GPS is going to get us out of the shitty situation that we're in is a lie. The idea that you can be prepared to survive the apocalypse, and this is as close to what I was predicting about a Zombie as we'll ever get in America in
Right.
our lifetime, right? You have to live to use all that, what you call whiz bang stuff. So that double barrel semi-auto shotgun with a right and left eject with the aim point sight, all of that horse crap is predicated on the fact that you wore your mask and you didn't get infected by your shitty neighbor and you're not dead now or sick, because you can't defend when you're dead or sick, Brian. You just can't, you know? So I'm with you. And I think the thing that gripes me the most, Brian, is when I see these people that are doing this. Look, you have a better chance of eating right, which is free, by the way, working out, which is free, by the way, learning CPR, how to use the Heimlich, basic first aid, stopping bleeding. I would invest in those things. And nobody's listening, Brian. We teach the simplest form of increasing resilience through advanced critical thinking by increasing how you predict danger. And Brian, the phone, you hear the
Yeah,
phone ringing? You see what
yeah.
I'm trying to say? So I'm with you, but I don't want the trainers to take this wrong. I don't want the trainers to think, oh, you're crapping on me because I can, flip a tire or climb a rope or, shoot underhanded
But
backwards.
that's a perfect example. That's a perfect example of how you're all right. You're gonna shoot and do a workout at the same time.
Yes.
That is really good to develop a whole bunch of different skill sets, but that's physiological stress you're inducing on yourself through exercise. That in no way, let me be very clear, in no way does that replicate psychological stress that you're going to feel during one of those moments.
Yep.
It's much if I go, Greg, we're here's the course of fire today on our range. You're gonna carry that sandbag over to there. You're gonna flip that tire. You're gonna do some backflips. You're gonna sprint up that hill. Then you're gonna come down and you're gonna have to shoot this, and you're gonna be breathing really hard. You're gonna have to aim and do all that. Okay, that's gonna be tough, all right?
It is.
And that's gonna be a stressful, physiologically stressful for you. Okay, but if I go to the 15-yard line, Greg, and I pull up that shot timer and I go, here's your course of fire. If you don't pass this on your first attempt, you are out of a job and you're going home today. Which one of those is more
That switches
difficult?
things a little bit.
Well, okay.
But let
Now
me
I'm
add one thing.
but
Let me
meaning
add,
it's not
yeah,
a
yeah.
real training scenario. I'm just saying
No,
that's a difference between physiological and psychological stress. Which one is harder? You could go if
precisely.
you
And
work out
and
every
we're not
fucking
going the
day. Yeah.
strategic, which is the
No, no,
sociological
no.
byproducts
Impact.
of
Yeah.
your decision. Yeah. So let me just add one thing. I don't want you to stop, but I want you to add one thing. I was in a backyard in Detroit after midnight, trying to breathe life into a guy that was shot in the chest a number of times. And every time I blew in, blood and phlegm came out of the holes in the chest. And every time I leaned back to take a breath, parts of his lung
Yep.
and liver were in my mouth. So there's certain times that image comes at me so vividly, Brian, and that's one of hundreds. Do you get what I'm trying to say? That I have to stop what I'm doing and take a big step back. Never done that in training, Brian. And we tried for realistic training. You and I, we tried with some great thought leaders when we brought the amputees into the infantry immersive trainer. And you remember those? We did it with shocks when we had the system hooked up to different parts of the body. So when you had a near miss with a gunshot, you would feel that. Those were great, but those were physiological. You get what I'm trying to say? And the only psychological was the PTSD we all walked away with from trying so hard. So don't equate your endurance training, yeah, with building resilience.
Well,
So it's not the same.
and what I don't see is that critical thinking decision making points put in. It's literally
Yes,
still just more high speed react to this situation. You're going to go make entry into that room and figure out what's going on. It's like, why? Why do I
can,
have to
can
go in
we
that room?
can we go to
Is
another
this
room? Yeah,
is this a
exactly.
hostage rescue situation?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
am I in a special missions unit in the military? Because if unless that you fall under that category, why are you doing that? Like, I don't
because
get.
because the burglar that's coming in to grab your flat screen for the meth that they want to do later is
Yeah,
going to somehow keep your kid hostage. Have you
yeah, and
seen
he
that? Are
yeah.
there articles about that?
And so it's not training for the real event, right?
Precisely.
And one of the issues with that is we conflate this, and it's not because it's bad or stupid or we don't know what the fuck we're doing. It's one, it's fun, it's exciting, it's competitive, and it's it's easy to show improvement, right? I can see a result. Hey, I went from this type of shot group to this type of shot group.
Yep.
I hit those steel plates faster than I did, and
Yep.
that's good. That's all good. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to do that. You know what I never see? Some sort of realistic scenario where they have to articulate what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what action should be taken, and what the potential second and third order effects are. Outside of our
Precisely.
classroom, I've never seen that.
Yep. Yep.
And so the point is I'm trying to make here is you're spending all of that time, all of that money, all of that resources on something that you're never going to use. And I
Or
don't want to say
it's going to
never.
be so
It's so
remarkable. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
it
Such
would
a one off. Amazingly, it's not going to occur. The chances are so low. But Brian,
I
if you can predict danger, you can avoid it. Okay, and
yes.
we're stepping away from that. People every day, somewhere in the United States, die from drowning in a pool, at a house, where then the medical investigator comes and says, if you would have had a wrought iron gate or pole, a retractable pole, you could have prevented this from occurring and the person wouldn't have died. But it's going to happen tomorrow and it's going to happen a year from now. Because why, Brian? Because it's not sexy, it's not exciting, it's not fun, and people never think that they're going to be in that kind of trick bag, and that's 1,000 times more likely than the scenario you talked about on the range.
It it is, and you know, there's a number of reasons. You know, you brought up like, you know, simple things. A healthy diet and working out and stuff is gonna, you know, is much better for you than doing all of that stuff. But um, how do we change this and how do we include this? Because I've seen people try to incorporate some sort of decision making stuff, but again, it turns into a binary choice. It's A or B. It's shoot or no shoot. So what do
Life's
you
not
think is going to
life's not
happen
binary.
when you no, it's non-binary like your
It's not.
sexuality, Greg?
Thank you.
And so what I'm saying is that, you know, if you don't build that in and all you do is those reps like that, it's like you said, it's muscle memory. If you are relying on muscle memory, then that's all you will have. So that is all you will do. I saw
Yes.
this, I reacted. Well, hang on. Hey, hang on for a second. That's it. You just said yes. Stimulus response. Stimulus response. Stimulus
So you're an
response.
amoeba. Yeah,
That's
you
it.
get what I'm trying to say. You
Well,
respond to the
then
heat.
why
You
are you
respond to the
here?
cold.
Because we could build a robot to do that,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it'll come out with the same effect, and it'll be cheaper. I mean,
So let me
I
ask you a question, because you bring up such great points, Brian. One, I may never be able to outrun you or outlift you, but I can outthink you. Okay, that's huge to me. The other thing is you brought up the gift of time and distance. The further away I am from you, the harder and less likely it is going to be that you're going to best me. And when I pull into the Apple Garden or whatever damn restaurant, I'm in Gunnison, so there's no restaurants, and all the local stuff is wonderful, but it doesn't have those cheesy, you know what I'm saying, chain
Yeah.
store appeals. When I pull up into the parking lot and I see a situation that could evolve or devolve into something I don't want to be in, I have a Perndle and I have a 6,000 pound vehicle
Yeah.
and I can drive away. Okay.
Absolutely.
And when I see these people and I see the reactions, let me disabuse you of the fact that the attack on Congress was different in some way and that it couldn't have been predicted. I will caution you that every class I've ever taught included a section about ladders. Brian, from
Yeah.
the first time you took a course that I taught, yeah. Now you're the expert. You're the number one with a bullet. You are the most likely to succeed in human behavior pattern recognition analysis. But at one time, you walked into a room where I was up there chain smoking and sweating, and I was talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I not talk about ladders? Ladders create access. Ladders are hugely important. And when you see them, you got to do the math. Well, they saw ladders all over DC.
They put them
Nobody
out.
put they did
When
not
people
put the two and two together. Am I lying? And
no,
and
but
and what happened next?
that's the idea of looking at, the crowd rushing up the cap, as they're like, oh, look, they broke through the barricades. I was like, those aren't barricades.
That's
Those are
and
ladders.
remember that when they were rushing and breaking in, Brian, they were seconds before bang. So that's all at bang, left of bang, would have been rolling the tape back and saying, hey, what's with the masked guys carrying the ladder? Do you see what I'm trying to say? And they're meeting with another group with a ladder. Are they repainting the
It,
Capitol today?
so
Brian, we talked about the RV and the camper, and we talked about the cooling sources and the venting and how one could easily be turned into a weapon. And then Nashville happens, and everybody goes, well, these specialty vehicles. Listen, they've been dangerous since the Trojan horse. We're just not thinking. And thinking is what's going to set us free here.
and I try to, it's I try to put this delicately because, I don't want it to come across as I'm attacking you as a person or what you're doing. I'm saying there's an absolute necessity for that type
It,
of firearms training and everything. Like
yep,
I'm not disagreeing.
yep.
What I'm saying is it's not a solution or an answer. It's a part of an overall task that you may need to accomplish, right? So there's no continuity there. It's when you're on a flat range and you're shooting, that is part task training. So
No matter how complicated the target array, no matter it's part task. You're exactly right.
so think about that. So there's all kinds of different part task training you do. Like, there's a million different things about, learning a new radio or learning a new process or learning a new whatever it is or a skill, putting a tourniquet on. That's part task training because
Yep.
if you're putting a tourniquet on someone, there's a whole scenario going on, right? But this is part of that task is to put that on. So I want to be clear on that because why are you spending so much time on this one specific little part task training? Why? Why increase that so much? Now, I understand that, like, especially when you talk about firearms, that takes longer because you need to develop proficiency, meaning you need more hours on the range to learn to safely shoot and handle a weapon system than you
Mm-hmm.
do how to put on a tourniquet, right? I mean, I'm not talking about that. There is an initial number of man hours that it takes to do that, right? Just to develop basic level proficiency. But what I'm talking about is continue. Oh, we're just going to continue down that. Hey, let's just keep going down that road. It's like, well, what about that road or that road or that road over there? Yeah, no, that's good. I'll see it. I'll be able to handle that. Look, I got the experience. I'll see that when it's coming. If there's not a better example of that type of attitude, look at what happened at the Capitol building. I mean, holy crap.
Precisely.
What that was a tactical, operational, and strategic blunder at the
A
highest
failure.
level failure that
Yeah.
I have seen. I have ever seen. That was a bigger failure than 9/11. And I because this one was so much smaller and easier to prevent than 9/11. I mean, and you missed it. And there's different reasons for that, but what I'm getting at is at no point, like you said, someone went, crowd of angry people. Social media posts for days talking about this big day on this specific date at this specific time. all these flyers being handed out to all these people. Now, there's all kinds of different groups in there. I'm not saying it was some super highly organized event. There was different actors in there. There was foreign intelligence services agents. There was homeless Pete out there. You had the dude ripping bong tokes in his car before he went out to the rally. You had very serious, angry people with legitimate reasons and causes to be there. You have a whole wide array of people, but what do you think is likely going to happen of all the potential outcomes? Is on the list that they're going to come in here and attempt to do? Yeah, because once that spark gets lit. So at no point was there any type of critical thinking going on. But guess what? They had everyone in there. You had the response team with the Gucci gear and the nice weapon and the best optics on it. And even though they were walking up the stairs while another agent is shooting in their direction, I mean, you keep if we keep going looking for a technological answer, this is what we're going to get. And when I say technological, a new weapon system is a technology, a new site is a technology, a new piece of gear is a technology. And we go to that, and we never exercise our brain. We never engage in critical thinking. We don't, or the what if game is so stupid and ridiculous that it becomes, well, what if a van full of machete wielding midgets pulls up to the gate? It gets dumb, right? We don't actually do that. So why can't we develop that, Greg? Because then what happens is we all bitch about the event afterwards and go, well, it's because of this, and this person didn't let me do my job, and this policy and procedure, and this senator or
None
Congress.
of that's true.
You're like, dude,
Yeah.
that person wasn't even there. You were the one there. That person had nothing to do with it. So at a tactical level, you can't control all those contributing factors of our national policy on whatever, but you can control it on the ground in your life, and you can articulate it. So we don't ever do that. And that's my problem, is we don't do these type of training scenarios where we engage the brain. We engage muscle memory after muscle memory after muscle memory, and that's it.
So let me prove that to you, Brian. While in progress, the debacle that occurred in Washington, the reprehensible thing that everybody should be apologizing for on all sides. I sent you, Shelley, and Sean Clemens a photo of a highly trained person who has been training their entire life for this exact scenario at this moment to prevent it. And at that stopwatch second in time, the person's carrying their AS baton and their handgun in their offhand while talking on the radio. Okay. And so is mission ineffective with all three of them.
And let me be very clear, that individual, it was not his fault. That was a failure, not on his part. That was a failure in training.
Yeah.
You are going to do what you were trained to do.
What I'm telling you is we're too fast a hero, sending out that these people are heroes because their faulty training got them killed during the most critical moment in the battle. And people are going to vilify me for saying that, Brian, but because you die, simply the fact of dying doesn't make you a hero. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Right.
And if you died for something that wasn't noble and you weren't moving the dial or saving a life or doing something, I suspect that what'll happen in 100 years is what's happening now. They're going back down and tearing down statues of Lincoln because he doesn't meet our current day standard of what a hero is. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So I will tell you,
it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough.
He didn't do enough. He just didn't do enough.
Well, I wasn't there, and I have no context to that. I wasn't alive during that time. I have no context.
I didn't feel his pain.
I wouldn't.
I didn't see.
I didn't know what was going on, but I'm gonna go and that's getting into a whole another issue.
But is it not parallel to the argument that we miss? Brian, you said it. Okay. First of all, let's talk about coppers. Back in the day, if you could paint it flat black and hang it on my belt, I would buy it as a copper because I wanted the bat belt. I wanted everything from the door wedge to the car starter to the reverse 180, brake pump, whatever the hell the thing was. I wanted all of that. Why? Because I didn't know, and I was anxious. I didn't know what I needed in all these situations, so I'll carry everything. Well, we learned a long time ago that's not a very smart way of doing things. So then what happened is we said, okay, holsters are getting ripped off the coppers. Their guns are being taken. They're killed with their own guns. Well, those are facts. You can look those up, folks. You can see when the U.S. Department of Justice found those numbers and instituted a training program for weapons retention. And and weapons disarmament because cops were being attacked in close proximity because they did not have the gift of time and distance. What we haven't done is address the cause of time and distance. For example, we still don't understand physics, which is a scientific principle, and we put a fully grown copper out in front of a speeding vehicle from a property crime and have that person try to throw a tax strip down in front of the vehicle.
What do you think
Brian,
is going
have
to
you read?
happen?
Well, I know it's happened, and you do too,
How
because we
many
read these
just
dead
last
cops.
year? How many just last
Come
year
on,
were killed in
come
that
on.
exact specific, that very specific thing?
Yes.
I bet I don't. It was exponentially greater than the number of officers who were shot in a gunfight in the line of duty.
I would say that if you compare them and then add the fact of holding on to a vehicle while it's driving and trying to use your superpowers, Marvel comic hero, and stopping the vehicle. And you're saying, oh, those cops are heroes. They're not heroes, they're undertrained. When you are hanging on to a vehicle that is pulling away, it has ceased being a property crime now and is going into the attempted murder, the
Yeah.
using a vehicle as an implement of a furtherance of a crime. You need to break contact. We talk about cover and concealment, Brian, but your brain isn't wired that way. Okay, your brain is, I need to get closer, I need to get hands on, I need to lock on. If we're not teaching at the academy that you have to push away, you have to get away from that vehicle, and you have to get behind something that can take the impact from a 6,000-pound vehicle or whatever vehicle's way. I'm talking shit because I don't know,
The,
but the idea is that I do know the basics of physics. If that vehicle hits you, it's likely to kill you. If the vehicle drives over your skull, you're likely not going to
I don't.
survive.
I understand force equals mass times
Yep,
acceleration.
but
I
that's
mean,
not taught at the police academy. Was that taught when you were teaching at the sniper school? Force equals mass times acceleration was taught because of the bullet weight,
terminal
the bullet
ballistics.
density, the
Yeah,
terminal ballistics.
get.
Yeah, am I
Yeah,
lying?
that's what I'm
Uh,
saying. It's
But
for
but
that.
that's not in context with what we're talking about now.
No, and this goes into our over reliance on technology. And again, everything is a technology. Your taser is a technology.
Yep.
Your tac vest is a technology. Everything that you're using is some form of technology. But that specific example, it goes from an auto theft, which I'm pissed if my Harley
Property
was
crime.
stolen 10 years ago or 12 years,
Yep.
15 years ago, whatever, right? It pisses me off. But you know what? Pay for insurance. So guess what? I got a big ass payout on it. And actually, from where I bought it and what I put onto it is actually somehow worth more where I was living than what I paid for it originally. So meaning it's
And is
covered.
it
But here,
worth a life on either side?
no,
Because
and no,
you
and
and I
not, and
just two
that's the
days ago
problem.
discussed where a vehicle owner tracked down his own
Own,
stolen vehicle
yep,
and it ended up
is
killing
a
the
homicide.
likely suspect. So cops die and suspects die, and it's not worth it for a property crime. It's
It
not.
it's not worth it, you're doing a simple cost benefit analysis, and the cost is not worth the benefit. That auto theft, this is where we get it wrong. We go, hey, we need all this technology to do all this stuff, yet you're still putting out literally. I don't know how old that type of technology will be, but we're going to put down some sharp things on the road to stop someone.
Yep.
I'm guessing that tactic has been used for a few thousand
Ugluk and
years.
Mukhtar used that to try to slow Hannibal down,
Right,
Brian, when he came over
exactly.
the Alps. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying is like, well, wait a minute. We have things like license plate readers. We have cameras with facial recognition technology. We have drones. Like, why wouldn't you just go, oh, there he goes. Here, I'm going to point this little thing at it. Boop. Hey, the drone deploys and it just follows it. And we just go grab a cup of coffee, guys. Like it's just this immediate emergent response to every single thing that happens, almost as if
Right.
we never knew or had never seen this before. And you're going, well, how many vehicle pursuits have there been? Why haven't we come up with a better way to do it? And it's just,
Exactly.
no, we need a faster vehicle. We need a better strip. Hey, we need to get that. It's like, no, we don't. We do. It's not
We need to
worth it.
go in a stark new direction because those didn't work and they're not working now. And creating a pursuit classic vehicle and putting different stripes and mag tires on it and stuff. You know what that does? That appeals to the adrenal cortex of the copper who goes, "Ooh, got to have one." But that doesn't really promote a lot of critical thinking about payouts when the agency is sued for reckless or preventable death.
No, and this is the issue is what I'm attacking and what you're attacking is that process, right? The training process, the implementation of policies and procedures, and a whole bunch of other different
Yep.
things. So you go ahead and take your little bio break while I'll go on my own little
Yeah,
little
but
little
give me your rant, Brian. I'll be right back.
little rant as Greg has to hop off momentarily for you guys and girls following along on Facebook Live. And if you're listening right now, it's just a good point to mention. You can follow me. I'll have the link on there to come up live and engage in the conversation when it occurs. So Greg will be back in a second. But I just want to reiterate the fact that I'm saying that some of that training and stuff that I see is absolutely amazing. It's necessary, and people are really good at it. I've got friends that are some of the best shooters on the range I've ever seen and can move and do all that cool high speed stuff. But I've yet to see someone translate that over into an actual situation on a realistic scenario based training. And I almost never seen that. I've only seen that a handful of times. And the reason why is we don't ever think all of this stuff through. That's why the person can't talk on the radio after one of these situations. They didn't train for that. That's why we're still running and jumping at moving vehicles because no one trained to, hey, no, you get away from that thing. You don't go towards it because everything in your primitive brain is screaming, there's the threat. There's what I need to do. There's where it is. But the problem is, just like Greg talked about right at the beginning, is you have a very, very narrow functional field of view. Okay. For a guy, it's about a quarter held at arm's length. What does that mean? That's your strong central vision. That's all you can see. The rest outside of there is visual and perceptual fill. So when everyone's heard the term tunnel vision, it never gets explained correctly. Anyone who's ever experienced that tunnel vision, man, that's all I could see right in front of me and there was nothing else out there. Let me be clear. If you've had that experience, that's actually all you can ever see, even not in those situations. That is your central vision. Everything else around there is visual and perceptual fill. So back to the example that Greg brought up in Wisconsin of that police officer who chased that guy down and shot him a bunch of times. It's because that's all he could ever see was that threat. No one ever taught him stop, take cover, look left, look right, take in the whole scenario, take a breath. If you're constantly reacting to someone else's behavior or someone else's actions, you're never getting ahead of the curve. If all you're doing is chasing TTPs, those tactic techniques and procedures, okay, hey, they're doing this now. What's the big one? All right, they're stealing catalytic converters off vehicles again. Now that's a big thing because they're worth a lot of money and they're taking a lot of actually the I think it was the Ford Focus is the really easiest one to
Mhm.
get. Now that becomes all right, we got to protect this. Okay, by the time you've come up with some way to prevent that, they've already moved on. So you're always behind the curve. All right. And that's the issue with here. And yes, the catalytic converter theft and officer involved shootings are the same thing in terms of how we look at them in human behavior. Right. So that specific example of how that occurred in your strong central vision, that's it. You get locked in and that's all you can ever see. And that's why these situations occur, right? He never sat there for a moment and said, okay, if this happens, this may erupt into some riot in our city. No, well, because you weren't trained to think tactical, operational, and strategic. It was, hey, there's the guy, go get him. Well, the world is far more complicated than that right now. Okay, this isn't, there's nothing black or white about anything. And if you can't develop that way to look at things, then you're going to get yourself into some trouble. So I'm not
Yep.
bashing any of that, not bashing any of these people involved. I'm not even bashing the lawmakers and citizens of the country who have no idea about any of this stuff yet feel that they get to voice their opinion on it. And even though it's an ill-informed opinion, I'm not even bashing any of those people, right? Because you can't change that. What you can change is your training process and how you look at things and how you implement policies and procedures, how you understand them, how you can take a 360-degree approach, how you can see where you fit in to the overall bigger picture of events and make a calculated decision on, well, yes, I'm within my rights to do this. Yes, I can. Yes, I've been trained. Yes, the policy
But
says
do
I
I
can.
need to?
But is it
Should I?
just because it's within my rights doesn't mean it's the right thing to do? And that's where, if you're not training for that situation, you're not going to have an answer. It's muscle memory. Everything is taught muscle memory. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Your reload on your weapon system, yes, that needs to be taught muscle memory. That is part of a larger task. All right. That is part of some larger thing that's going on. That's one part. Okay. That's it. So once you got it down for muscle memory, that's not going to think your way out of the situation. And that's
Uh,
where we're getting at
Brian,
is
Brian,
Greg comes back from the bathroom.
no, no, and I've been back a few minutes, folks. If you're not watching, and thank you for that because I just can't handle it an hour anymore. The idea, Brian, there's an ethical conundrum that comes up, and I'll give you an example. So it's hard for me sometimes to understand marijuana because I was
Have you
in a
tried some? It's
situation.
pretty easy to
Oh,
understand, Greg.
yeah, let me verify what I'm trying to explain.
Yeah,
I spent part of
you're
my
in
life trying to
Colorado,
cure
so
glaucoma.
yeah,
Then I was a member of a drug task force,
right,
and I was in areas where marijuana and all drugs were zero tolerance. So understand this for a minute.
right, right,
That's
right.
your job.
Yeah, no, no, I got you.
And then all of a sudden you get into this situation where you now everything is okay. Well, that makes for hard critical decisions when you're in the moment. So for example, you got a kid, the kid's in front of you, he's got a couple of grams of weed that's in his menthol cigarette pack. He's taken the cellophane off and twisted that, and he's got it in there, and he's going to do a bowl a little bit later. And so as you're patting him down, you know the crinkle of the cellophane, you know the outline of the thing, you can smell the reefer, and you go, "What's up, kiddo?" And he's like, "Hey, what do I do?" And you're saying like, "Well, because I'm a law enforcement officer and we're in a zero tolerance state, I have to take that. I have to book you. You're going to have to hope for a 5311 to get out of this, because if not, it's going to change the entire trajectory of your life." And that's a fact. So if I'm thinking about that with the weed, and we developed a policy called Windy City, which is like the unspoken, I'm going to put it down on the ground and rub it out with my heel and then tell you to get the hell out of there. There's your free chance. You know what I'm saying? Okay. But like if you tried to lie from me or run from me or do something else. So I had this ethical standard that as long as
Right.
you met my illegal view of the world, you fit. Well, that happens every day. And Brian, I'm talking about a couple of grams of weed and me
Okay.
thinking about this kid's future and trying to protect it.
So,
So why don't I think about that when I got a gun in my hand? You understand what I'm trying to say? And I'm about to take somebody's life, because we're not trained to do that.
well, because here's the thing too, and this is where I will discuss a little bit about this is how policies and procedures come into play, right?
Yeah.
And first of all, that was the story of how Greg and I first met, by the way.
Yep.
But
Brian spent a lot of time in the backseat of a scout car, so he can
so
speak as a SME on police work.
I refer to them as ride-alongs,
Yes.
but you when you when you when you talk about policies and procedures being implemented, and when you okay, so we, rather than investing in training, so investing in who we want, I mean, just take a step back real quick and go, who do we want to police our society? I
Yep.
mean, think of it. I know of all the people I've met in my life, I can think of like 5 people, and actually a couple of them are police officers and a couple of them were police officers, or like 6 or 7 people that I would go, that person would make a great someone to enforce laws and
Mm-hmm.
deal with people and deal with things that no one wants to deal with in our country, right? Because you've seen me before when we teach police officers, I say your job is more complicated than you're getting credit for, than you're giving it credit. And people are like, no,
It's
we have
true.
this. It's like, no, 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 it's far more complicated than even you realize. And it's not like a intellectual thing or stupidity thing. It's like, no, you're not giving yourself credit, and no one does. But the point I'm trying to make is what happens is we have, because we're not teaching critical thinking, because we're not investing in actual training and a real training cycle and what this job should be and who should be in it and what the pay should be and all that stuff, because we're not doing that, we come in with policies and we say, you know what, Greg, because people were doing that, now you must do this. It's like the story out here years back where a sheriff walked up on a vehicle, guys passed out inside. It was right off the freeway out here, and the
Yep.
guy, he's like, "What's going on?" There was like a whole bunch of bars and stuff near the area. It was like 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and he's like, "Hey man, like I was out with buddies, just drank too much. I'm sleeping off my car." And the guy goes, "Okay, cool. I don't get off till 7 a.m. or something. You better still be here when I'm going to come by you on my way back. You better still be here." Well, guess what? That guy then couldn't get back to sleep, got on the freeway, killed someone in a vehicle accident because it was a
Yep.
DUI and all that. So now that guy's in church. So now it becomes, when you don't, you will do this when you see that, Greg. So you don't get that leeway. You
I don't get
don't
a
get
choice. I
you
don't
don't
get
get
to
to You don't get to take
measure
in
the
the total.
context and the
You
relevance.
don't get to
Right,
take in
right,
the totality of the circumstances and
right,
look at it for what it
right.
actually is and make a call on judgment. Instead, you will just follow this policy. That's it. So rather than creating or developing that person, that officer, that individual out on the front line to the best of that we can possibly do, we say nope. If A happens, you have menu choice 1, 2, or 3. If
Yep.
D happens, you have choice 4, 5, and 6, and you will follow this. So it becomes so procedural. You get I don't get to use any experience. I don't get to use any judgment. I don't get to use any of the knowledge, skills, attitudes, aptitudes, ability that I've been taught, learned, trained
Even
on.
though the
And
emotions are attached to
e-
every decision I
so
make.
so 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 that becomes, now you'll do this, and now that leads to, okay, well, that leads to things like mass incarceration in our country. That
Yeah, yeah,
leads
yeah.
to things like people going to jail no matter what. And now you have an arrest record. And guess what? Once you've been arrested once, what are your chances of going to jail again? Well, we already did a freaking podcast on that. So the idea is we're taking out any type of leeway or judgment from that person. So they
Critical
don't
thinking.
get to make that call anymore because their job is on the line. They go, dude, I don't care. And so now what becomes a misdemeanor now becomes a guy resisting, takes off in a vehicle. Now it's felony after felony after felony. And where maybe 30 years ago, the guy goes, all right, man, here's the deal. You got to dump that over there and go on about your day. I know you got a family and you got a job. And if I hook you up right now, you're going to lose that. Right now, you don't get to do that. It just, there's no, that's the problem, right? So that's one of
It's
the
a big
problems when it
problem,
comes to
but
following
but
procedures.
and folks listening, Brian is not oversimplifying this. Brian is creating an allegory, and so I'll add to Brian's comparison when I say that. Listen, we should form a course, Brian. If we're going to do police reform and training reform, we should form a course called Getting Away. And if we look at that from sociological, physiological, and psychological, this is what we would see from it. One, your feelings are going to get hurt when a suspect runs from you, and your
Yeah.
brain is going to say, go.
Yeah.
And your catch instinct when somebody runs away is going to way outrun your headlights, and you're going to get hurt, or somebody else is going to get hurt at the end of every pursuit. Nobody shuts the sirens off because they can't even hear them. Nobody stops flogging until finally somebody goes, oh, holy crap, wait a minute, which puddle is the suspect? Why? Because in our brains, it's a game, and we haven't tried to game that game. We've played around with the weapons and the speed of the vehicles and the distance.
Yeah.
But the idea is that even when I'm standing on a street corner and I contact you, and all of a sudden you push off, and folks, that's called resist, and it's actually an assault. But the idea is that you don't have the right to do that on the books. You have to stay. And if it's an unlawful arrest, there's redress. Okay.
Yeah,
But
you can,
but the
if it,
idea is
yeah.
both humans are products of their emotion, Brian. So
Yeah.
the suspect goes, I got to flee. And he rabbits. And the officer says, oh, not today. Oh,
Yep.
not from me. Okay. We have to have a class at every academy that addresses those actual issues. And somebody will tell you, yeah, we do. Okay. So that study you and I did a while ago where it was 85% of the academies did the pursuit driving and the shooting, daylight, nighttime, all that other stuff. And out of the entire I can't remember 1,800 hours or whatever the hours. Don't hold me to the numbers, folks. I
Yeah.
don't know. 10 hours spread across a 16-week academy was communication skills, but that included radio and interpersonal communications, not stress communications. Brian, do you see what I'm saying here? I'm trying to say that we spend so much time walking around with the gun that we think it's an option. Okay, the gun shouldn't be an option. You know how many times you have to pull a gun, and pulling your gun from the holster, even aiming at the ground, is a use of force. That has to be justified, and that should have to be the last and most lethal intervention you see. Outgoing President Trump and incoming President Biden, you weren't cops, so shut up. You
Yeah.
don't shoot people in
Yeah.
the legs.
That's
That's not going to
that's,
do anything.
but I think that
Okay. And the
highlights
mayor of your small city isn't a cop either. So he's going to come in with an uninformed opinion as well. What we have to do is we have to create a standard. And I don't care if it's a national standard, but it certainly has to be an ethical standard that we say that in these situations, we don't allow the human physiology or the human psychology to outweigh the sociological good. Brian, that's a simple thing to attain. We could attain that in a year. You get what I'm trying to say? I mean, if we focus what the real problem is, what does society want? What do they want from their police? Well, we can build that. And the police keep thinking, well, militarization is going to help because there are going to be greater problems. folks from Iraq and Afghanistan, they'll build a bigger bomb. Your MRAP isn't big
Yeah,
enough for all the
no,
bomb.
that's
So
that's
that's
the
not the way, Brian. Technology is not the answer here.
that's the chasing the TTPs, and then the
Precisely.
solutions come in is this. Okay, well, we got to learn about culture, and we have to learn about different types of differences in different groups in your city and stuff. And my thing to
Yep.
that is, well, the cultural training I got before my first deployment to the Middle East was,
Yep.
hey, don't wave with your left hand because they wipe their ass, and don't show someone the bottom of your shoe.
Yep.
Good
Because that'll
luck.
start a war.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is that? All right. And it's
Yep.
the same stuff. It's like, hey, you can't talk to this person that way because of, I need to know about this specific culture or tribe or whatever. No, you don't. It's like telling people, hey, look, man, it's going to be different when you go to Japan, and on the subway they pack people in those things like sardines. All right, but that's just a cultural thing. I need to teach it. Wow, that's amazing. If you can't figure that out in the first 3 seconds you're there, you don't
Exactly.
belong there. Like,
You
these are
should
things that
take a bus,
it's
or
like, what do you,
what the
why is
hell?
that? Why is that important knowledge, right? It doesn't matter, Greg, what your religion or skin color or language is. If I can't tell that you're getting upset and attempt to de-escalate it, then that's a problem, right? It doesn't matter who you are or what race, gender, sex, whatever you identify as. It doesn't matter. If I can't read a situation and go, hey, this is escalating, I need to do something to mitigate this from escalating further, right? That's what it is.
Precisely.
That's a baseline what I need to do. And when they talk about different type of, hey, we need more de-escalation training, Greg. So we need people to go, stop,
But
calm
that's
down with
oh,
that.
here
it's
we
the
go. Now,
it's
now
the
you're poking the bear.
because that's not de-escalation. One, that's a tactic. Okay, great. That seems pretty common sense to me. But what we talk about is a tactical, operational, and strategic approach to that, and
Yes.
that's taught nowhere. Nowhere is that taught.
Turmoil. If you don't know what that means when it comes to sociology, turbidity, when you don't understand that in the psychological sense, if you don't understand how a mirage can occur in your brain, and it's called dissonance when you're in a situation that you don't completely understand. These are the things we spend so much time on checking the box, getting people to understand shit that is not going to help you save a life or save your own life or impact the future because we're afraid and anxious of lawsuits and getting fired. And the idea is that when Minnesota and Wisconsin both said, well, we're no longer going to listen to the police public information officer. Okay, there you go. So what we're going to do is we're not going to fix the news and what's problem with journos. What we're going to do is we're going to shut off the news and not listen to it. Okay, welcome to North Korea. I mean,
Yeah.
you have got to do something in the human behavior realm because humans come. Brian, you used the word snowflake the other day. You know that I've been using unique little snowflakes for 40 years in
Yeah, but
class, and now it's a thing, right?
but you use it as the term of every snowflake is unique. We're
It,
all individual and different, right? Other people, like,
now it's an insult.
yeah,
Yeah. So, but my
but
point,
and it's an insult usually thrown out by people who get
who
butt hurt
are
the
the
fastest.
snowflake?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
So which is ridiculous and dichotomous and so revealing. But what I'm trying to say is, if you spend time, like for example, understanding math, understanding physics, those are quantifiable and there's limits and the Fibonacci sequence is repeatable. You know
Yeah,
I was going to fit that in.
I knew.
Okay, but when we're talking about humans making decisions, Brian, every unique little human comes with a little backpack. Remember the little version of the hobo that you saw back in 100 years ago, or Meet Me in St. Louis, the film where they've got a stick over their shoulder with a little bag with all their belongings, and they got a 3-day growth of beard. Okay,
Yeah,
when you take a look at that mental image, that little bag gets bigger and bigger during your life, and you bring all of that stuff with you, and they try to weed it out. They
right.
try to do these MMPI and psychological
Yeah,
testing and all that
just
other stuff.
which
But the
is
fact
junk.
of the matter is that even though it's hidden, it's there, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay. And what happens the first time somebody pulls a gun on you and says, give up the cheese, all of those things are going to come into play. So realism in training doesn't mean that it has to be so real that you can feel, touch, taste, sense all of the things that are happening, but it has to be real to your brain. And that's only probably 60 to 80% real. But the idea is thinking your way out of those a couple of times, like escaping from one of those rooms, not the type of room you used to lock people in, but the fun one that people pay to get into now
Lotion in the
and unlock.
basket.
Yeah, she puts the lotion on her skin. But the idea, Brian, is that if we don't insert those components into every bit of training, if you're an edge weapons teacher, if you're a impact weapons teacher, if you're a pursuit driving or a defensive driving teacher, whatever you do, if it doesn't have an equal amount, and when I mean equal, I mean everything has to start and end with the human capital, the human domain, the human behavior, the scientific, then Brian, you're where we started again. You're pissing up a rope. You make a damn fine video, and the one that insulted me the most over the holidays is the 200 biggest ass kickers in America. We'll share with you on LinkedIn the brain
Oh
scan,
God.
move with
Yeah.
the just kiss my
Okay.
ass. Come get some
Okay.
one. And the
Sure.
second part of it is I'll make this, Brian. There's a lot of people that talk crap all the time on their podcast. So here's an absolute certainty. Congress, Senate, been to the Rayburn building, know how to get there. If you guys want your people trained on how the human behavior works to sense make the predictors of violent situations, Brian and I will show up and do it free. We'll come there this week. All you got to do is pay our flight, put us up somewhere, and feed us, and we'll come and we'll change your world by opening your eyes to how these situations develop, so you can conduct predictive analysis in real time. That's the key, Brian. That's where the training reform has to come from. Not holding my weapon, my asp, and the radio all in the same hand and juggling and
The,
wondering why I look like such an idiot. And I'm not calling that guy out
no, no,
because
no,
he
no,
can
no.
only be
Oh,
the function
yeah.
of what he was taught.
Right, right. Well, that's exactly it. He can only be the function of what he was taught. What he no, but
Yep.
you bring up a number of different topics, and that's well. First of all, I don't worry about these people being upset that we're bashing, because one, we're not bashing them, and they're not snowflakes, so they won't care, right? It won't hurt them
If
emotionally,
they're
right?
smart, they'll listen, just like
So
we listen when somebody gives us good advice.
absolutely. So,
Yep.
but the what you got into a couple different areas, and specifically when we talk about that critical thinking in science and math, we want simple answers, right? Everyone wants to
That's
go.
the problem, though.
Everyone wants to
There's no
go.
simple answer, but we want one.
You
We
know,
we
you, you,
prefer one.
you keep bringing up what happened at the Capitol building in D.C. the other day, and it's like the same thing, and it's well, it's all because of this. It's like, okay, you're going to take the guy dressed up in some goofy costume, and then the
Exactly.
guy who they got video of, and the FBI's got photos of it out, and asking for advice about the guy. They figured they trace back who brought the actual pipe bombs in. You're
Yep.
telling me you're going to lump them in together? Wow, your
They're
world's
all
real
the
fucking
same.
simple. Wow, your world is real simple. Well, wake up. It's not, okay? These are hard problems. These are
Yep.
very hard problems, and we don't even do a good job of articulating what the problem is. We immediately come in with a solution and say, oh, well, here's the answer. Here's what we need to do. And you brought up a big thing: fear, and fear of lawsuits, fear of
Yes.
repercussions, fear of dying, fear of all this stuff. And that is a huge issue.
Fear of the
So,
unknown. Yep.
well, that's the thing. If you're scared, it's because you don't understand. If you fear, we have natural fear for all kinds of different things, like spiders, snakes,
Yep.
all that different type of stuff. So if you're untrained and don't know how to deal with that situation, it is scary. So
Yep.
if you're making decisions based in fear, you're not making good decisions. You're
So
making
Tommy Nelson,
you're making good
Brian,
decisions for your own personal survival, and that's it.
40 years ago, being an on-duty roll call on midnight shift, my first night on the job, and Tommy Nelson must have been 300 pounds. His bullets for his 38 plus P had turned green and long had become part of the dump pouch that he held him in with his crappy weapon. But he was a cop. He was back in the days of two-fisted, shooting, foul-mouthed, taking on all comers. And he stood up and he said, for the new kids in the room, because he talked just like that, he said, best advice I ever got as a cop: if you're scared, don't go. He didn't know what he meant, but he was
Right.
dropping gems, and we needed to pick
Yeah.
him up. The idea is that your mental functions are going to be different. Listen, Brian, you've been in combat. I've got to tell you, there was a couple of times, and specifically one time when I was in Iraq, when the first sergeant was coming around and said, "We're getting overrun, so grab as much ammo as you
Yeah,
can and move, to the."
it's happening.
And I was like, "Excuse me, I'm just a strap hanger. I'm not in this." You know what I'm saying? And I'm negotiating for my life, Brian. I'm saying, "Look, all you guys might die tonight, but I'm different. I need to go home." And that was a fearful thing. I live with that. Why, Brian? Because anxiety and fear comes from the unknown. The unknown comes from the outcomes of training that you learned that you can be a superhero and fight your way, shoot your way, impact weapon or knife, or drive your way out of any situation. My thing is that doesn't matter, because if you don't get into the situation, you change the calculus. So by conducting predictive analysis, you change for example, if there would have been surgical intervention at the Capitol from teams that said, listen, we're not going to just put up barricades and hold back the throng. We're going to take out that group and that group that have the likely means to carry out the threat that they're preventing. Brian, it would have had a completely different outcome. There wouldn't be 4 dead. There wouldn't be the mayhem. But we don't think in those terms. We think, okay, I can imagine a big pool table, Brian, with the those things that they play pool on with the
Yeah,
masse
yeah,
shot,
yeah, yeah.
and they're pushing around the cavalry and they're pushing around the shit, man. That ain't the way wars are fought. You get what I'm trying to say? These are communities of individuals, and our nation isn't at war unless the journos and the politicians
Well,
want it to be. And
and
we could have intervened if training was there. We could have intervened and stopped that before it ever turned into the situation it did.
well, that's the thing is that it's you keep saying this is what we're talking about the gifts of time and distance and advanced critical
Yes,
thinking and understanding this is don't get into the situation. How do you avoid like the that's what a de-escalation strategy should
but we're
be
not
is
talking to be an ostrich, Brian. We're not saying
no,
just don't
but
get involved. We're saying get involved at the key essential times, and you will save money. You'll be more efficient, and you won't kill as many people.
well, right, but that goes into still having the ideas. How do we avoid this from happening? All right, you got to
Yeah.
crowd out in the Capitol, but like, how do we avoid them coming in here and ransacking the place? How do we avoid them from attacking? How do we avoid like that's your mitigation procedure should start. We always say prevent pre-event, right? Prevention
Yep.
starts before the event, not during. But the idea is don't get into that situation. And one of the things I used to always tell people is like you could be a major contributing factor to your own homicide. Like you are the biggest contributing factor to
I
your
got
own
that written
death.
right down here. It's
So,
your job to prevent your homicide.
yeah, but,
You
but
know.
but that's but that's what I'm saying is that and again everyone takes this as a bash, and I'm not. I'm
No.
saying you may have caused that situation to occur. And you're going, well, no, I didn't. I just followed what I was supposed to do. I go, yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like you did what you were supposed to do, and this situation happened. That's the fucking problem. Okay,
You're
it's
exactly
it's
right.
it's not that someone's wrong. Training is improved so much over my lifetime in terms of what's real and what works and what doesn't. And now you can, because of social media, you can call bullshit on people, and when they post stuff that is bullshit, and that's good. That's getting us better, but it's not changing the situation because we're not changing how we look at it. It's not changing the outcome because the training is the same thing.
So Brian, and you're right again and again and again. But the idea is that when you and I are doing a podcast for just you and I, the message is a bit muted. You see what I'm saying? So I take you back to Manchester, Ariana Grande concert, and people saying there's a suspicious male. It wasn't acted upon. A guy bringing a
Yeah.
suitcase into the concert wasn't acted on. Okay, so we talk about that one. We go back to the what was the guy Aaron Hernandez
Yeah.
that was
Aaron.
alleged to
Yeah.
a shooting with him. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they go through that entire thing and convict him,
Which
and
is
they go,
not the
oh,
first
by the
person
way,
he
did you
killed.
guys know that
Yeah.
he'd shot a couple of guys
Yeah.
in
He
this?
killed the guy in
And then they
Florida too.
started saying, oh, it was the homosexual rage that did it, and then the other
There
thing
was the
was, well, it was the
TBI.
brain injury.
Then
Remember
it was
the
a
yeah.
kid
So
rough upbringing. Then it was
so
like, which is all great.
it's all great, Brian, but that's us trying to name Sasquatch. That's trying us
Yeah.
to account for the flare at the military base by saying it was a UFO. What we have to do in a clear light of day is we have to sit down with the ACLU and the Southern Poverty Law Center and the officers training councils in each of the 50 states. And what we have to do is, first of all, tabula rasa. We can't look back. You and I got in an argument with not an argument. We had a decision, a difference of opinions with a person that said, "Hey, we already got this. These
Yeah.
programs are hanging on a shelf." Now they're not. They're hanging on a shelf for when it was. Like we can't deal with the Capitol being stormed now like it was in the 1800s, Brian. It's a little
Right.
bit of a different thing
There,
that's going on.
yeah.
So if we say that these advancements in laser and plasma weapons and sound technology and all that other stuff is just going along, why haven't we done one thing to bring the social, the physiological, and the psychological along? Why haven't we done one impactful thing when it comes to the academy? Even sending social workers out in the field, Brian, is an at-bang solution. That's
Right.
putting a effing Band-Aid on this problem. That's what they said in Apocalypse Now. We're handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500. We're not going to get there from here. We have to sit down with those thinkers and we have to come up with the scientific solution, Brian. And the scientific solution is and was training, but it has to be a revamp of this age-old training that we envision. It's no longer viable.
Well, that's the I agree. And the problem is there are advances in training, but the process is still the same. And that's what we do, right? We build a framework, right? We go, here's the
Exactly.
framework
Because
that
it's
you should
efficient.
follow. Well,
You know,
but that's the idea. It's everyone wants that. Okay, if we just hey, we just need to give these people some more training on human trafficking and we'll solve that problem. It's like, well,
yep.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's not a solution. That's not. It's well, here. Let's just get
I
a
didn't even
new.
get the memo when they changed like prostitution to human trafficking.
Right,
They
right.
changed the
I don't think
lexicon.
the
It didn't bring us all
prostitutes
up
did
to speed.
either. So
But you get what I'm trying to say. So
yeah,
that's not a 360 approach.
no,
That's a
and
one direction approach. And I'm not making fun of that because it's hugely important to get those people out of the situation. But Brian, it's at bang. It's not solving the situation for the
it's
future sociologically or psychologically.
no, it's a constant reaction to something, and that's where all these things come from. And the reaction is never. We don't ever want to go back and look at. But go back to just this what happened at the Capitol building, right?
Yeah.
No one goes, what were the contributing factors that led to this? Meaning that led to that group of people even being there. Okay, no, everyone goes, well, no, there they are, and this is what occurred, and oh, well, if we change this, and this, it's like, okay, maybe at a tactical level that's necessary. You clearly had a shitty security plan, or just decided to not implement it at all,
Right. Did
which
nobody
is
have binos? Was the
uh,
radio net
but
down?
but
For the love of God, man.
the thing is and I know people are resigning and getting fired and all that stuff, and
They
yeah,
should.
that doesn't, yeah, absolutely they should.
But
It's their
but
fucking
that's at
responsibility.
bang and after bang. That has
Right.
nothing
And
to
then
do
they're
with
going to
predictive
go, but
analysis.
then what are they going to do? Okay, hey, you know what? Now we're going to make it where you have to be at least 300 yards from here. And there's going to be tactical considerations here, which are
Yeah.
necessary, but no one's going to sit there and go, hey, you know what? Why'd these fucking assholes show up in the first place? What happened? How'd they get there? Who
Right.
got them there? Why did
Right.
they feel that they need to come to, like,
Where was the
there's
rental?
no
Where was the taxi?
there's no
What the
discussion of
yeah.
any of that. It's all just this occurred. Let's figure out how to not make that specific situation occur again. How many RVs have been pulled over since Christmas morning bombing in Nashville? Because
But
an
for
RV
all
is
the
only
wrong
made.
reasons.
I
Only
know.
because
That's
it's
what
an
I'm
RV.
saying. That's
That's
what I'm
exactly
saying.
right, Brian. But are you telling me that my grandkids, it's great grandkids, folks, are you telling me that my grandkids and some of the illegitimate children that Brian has spawned into this world
All
are
over
not
the
going to be able
world.
to see the public building, the Capitol, and go into the Senate and meet their senators and congressmen because of this incident? If
Yeah.
so, is that the result you were aiming for? Are
Right.
you trying to weaken the fabric of our democracy? So, my point, Brian, is that we can't have this pendulous response to all of these incidents. No RVs, no coolers coming into the concert. What we have to do is we have to conduct predictive analysis and be laser focused in our response. And those people that get that training have to be thinkers. They have to be critical thinkers. We no longer need the gigantic gladiators with a bigger club stopping and stomping out crime. We figured that doesn't work, Brian. Okay, so we have to go a different way. And I'm not trying to say hypothesize and slow down and think all is love with the community policing uh, project that didn't do shit in our communities. Frankly, I'm talking about a thinking human being that's at the end of that chain, because always there's a human at the end of the chain that is going to change and adapt for the better by utilizing critical thinking skills. Brian, I would say this, and I know it sounds like I'm ranting, but I'm not. The idea is that I think that if a human being spent a quarter of the money that they spent armor guard and cameras and guns and upgrading the push bumper on their car for the Zompok, if they spent a quarter of that time and that money on getting the right training, their entire focus would change. The scales would fall from their eyes. They would go, wow, I can enjoy life and be safe and conduct predictive analysis and stop events before they occur. We can do it with a fire, but we can't do it with a wildfire. Why? Nobody's trying. Do you get what I'm
Well,
trying to say?
yeah, no,
Okay, so we
it's
could do it with hijacking airplanes, but we can't do it with turning airplanes into a lawn dart and burning them into a building. Why? Because we don't want to. If we want to, Brian, the answer is in science. The answer is in science and human behavior. When they're coupled, they're insurmountable. You can't beat them.
yeah, and that's is it's extremely frustrating, and that's what this comes out as, is because how many times, and I keep picking on the range stuff and the shooting just because it's so easy to, and it's such a great
But it's also so
example.
prevalent, huh?
Well, that's
It's
what I'm saying.
everywhere.
It's such a great example of how these things go. I mean, you can pick a number of different areas and look at it the same way, but that one's just is so prevalent, and to look at it, and you know how many times where I have been in positions where it was as a tactical sort of training instructor to not
You're the
get into
guy.
any of that
Yes.
stuff, but to show that, and you had guys that could just, man, run a gun like you wouldn't believe and do all this whiz bang cool stuff, and I'm like, damn, like so impressed. And then when a situation in realistic some type of training scenario comes up, it's like, well, why did you do that, or what was that over there? Yeah, that dude is yeah, there's something up. Go on. Yeah, he's just acting, he's doing like no, not even a basic word to describe other than, well, he's acting shady. I was like, what's fucking hot out, and
You
he's
got
standing
it.
in the
You mean
shade.
like
So
Slim
yeah,
Shady? Do you
like
mean he's acting like
like
Slim
Eminem,
Shady?
like is
Exactly.
he
That's so
flowing over
stupid.
there? It's
And
like,
and we joke about this, but Brian, do we not attack people and their credibility when they start talking like
I,
that?
if
And
you
we go,
can't,
but why? So prove it. So what? You know?
if you can't articulate your observations, there's a problem. Now,
Yep.
I'm not saying it's a problem with you. I'm saying it's a problem with the training you went through. If you can't tell me why you made a decision, you shouldn't be allowed to make those decisions. Right?
I agree.
You get what I'm saying, is that's
Yes.
where it has to come in. Because of this, coupled with that, mixed in with this, I arrived at this conclusion. Now, if you arrived at the wrong conclusion, we can fix that, right? Right.
Yep.
But meaning, if you can't even say what occurred, if you can't even explain that, then what are we doing here? You
So
know what
so
I'm
let me
saying?
let me let me throw a clear sheet of acetate over your argument, and I'm going to start drawing on it with my vis-a-vis marker. Okay, one of these statements is true today. Holy crap, I can't get any of these great books on psychology, sociology, or physiology, and anxiety and stress, and preparing myself mentally for situations mindfully and with empathy. I can't get any of those books, Brian. They're all sold out and they're on backward. I can't get any. Okay,
Right.
but on the other side is ammo. I can't get 9 mil ammo. I can't get reloading. I can't get. So what does that show? That's the descent into madness, Brian. We
Okay.
continue to buy metal flashlights and better guns and affix them with better sights because we don't plan on thinking ourselves out. That's critical.
Yeah.
Going back to that Hernandez case, the lawyer on Hernandez's trial was the same lawyer for Florida female killed her daughter, Amy. No, Casey Anthony. Remember the Anthony
Oh,
trial?
it
Okay,
was.
so yeah. The the
Oh,
the,
that's
the
right.
same guy, Baez,
I
whatever his
Yeah,
name
yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah,
was the
yeah, yeah.
same dude. Okay, and there's one part during the trial, folks. Everything you need to know, you can study. It's out there.
It's out there.
Go
Yeah.
look at these things. During one thing, he says, "Hey, listen, if you can't put a gun in Aaron Hernandez's hand, he's not guilty." He tells the jury that. Then they got 100 hours of video from all different angles of his own home security that shows Aaron Hernandez coming out of his basement holding a Glock.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was at the same time that whoever he shot died and all this other stuff. Okay, Brian, if you take the argument that we're going to be able to fight our way out of this, arrest our way out of this,
Incarcerate our way out of this.
those are all
Legislate our way
lies.
out of it.
Those are
Yeah.
all lies that your brain is telling you. The
Yeah.
answer is we have to think our way out of this, and we have to slow the F down We have to take a gigantic look at the 360 implications. And people are going, that'll take time. Oh, danger, warning,
Yeah,
Will
it will.
Robinson. Yeah, it's
It's
going to
called
take time, but the end
that's
product is going to be better.
what do
It's
you
not going to be a
what do you
flipping hot
think?
shit sandwich.
Okay, it's that's the issue, and it's always been the issue, Greg. It's never about money.
You're
Yes,
right. You're
the
right.
economy,
Time.
this, that, whatever. Great. We're a rich country, and we spend money on stuff that we don't need and don't use, and goes to waste. The money is there. It's time. It's
You're
time
exactly
because
right.
people are lazy. No one ever wants to take the time, and if you don't take the time, this is what's going to happen. And
And it's going to happen again
it's
and
going to
again and
continue to
again.
happen. But we go,
Yes.
well, we can't fit it in because we're busy. But when are you not fucking busy?
So
When is
you're right
a
on.
especially a metropolitan police department?
Yep.
Give me an
Got a
example
real
of
lull
give
that
me an
week.
example give me an example of a time when you're not
Right.
constantly busy. Okay, so that's not going anywhere. So let's
Yep.
just assume that to be yes, you're always busy. I don't care. It's the same thing when people go, "Oh, I don't have time for the gym. I'm busy." Your whole life, everyone's busy. We get it. We get
You're
it.
willing to trade an hour a day
You're
to
what
die.
you exactly. The whole point is you can take the time to do that. You can always you can if you want. If that's what you want, if you really want it, you'll take the
But you
time.
gotta want it, Marin. And Marin, you know my Uncle
Just
Paul,
gonna
and you
want
know
it.
I'm no stranger to his basement. Okay, God rest his soul. But he had a leak, and it was in East Detroit, and the basement was started as what they called a Michigan basement, but they built it out, and even though it was rudimentary and very Spartan, it was a basement. Okay, but they had this leak, and on this one wall, over 13 years that I got to see it grow, you could see all this stuff they had patched and put on to try to stop this leak in the basement that happened every spring and flooded the basement. Now, I asked the guy when I got older, I go, hey, what do you do for them basements? And he go, you got to go outside, you got to trench, you got to put the pea gravel, you got to do all that other stuff. I go, yeah, but my Uncle Paul, 13 years, he kept putting stuff on for that one spring that did it. And he goes, it would have cost a fraction, but it would have taken time. And he didn't want to invest the time. Okay, you're talking about the same thing. All I'm trying to do is street it up, another allegory. I'm trying to say that, listen, wisdom is going to get us out of these situations. Okay, knowledge is going to get us out. People call woke, but woke is bigger than we are, folks. And it's finally seeing that Tesla was right, finally taking a look at the situation and saying it wasn't a UFO, to really dig deep and entrench ourselves in the issue. If we want reform, Brian, reform is going to be painful, it's going to be expensive, and it's going to take time, but it's attainable and it's a noble goal. I
Well,
truly mean it.
that's what we wouldn't be having this discussion. I wouldn't be angry and frustrated all this shit if it wasn't attainable. If
Right,
none of this was attainable, we wouldn't. I wouldn't care. I'd go
right.
have a different job. I mean, there would be no reason to do it because we go, well,
Yep.
that's the way it is. Like but that's the problem. It doesn't have to be that way. And it's where it gets in here is that our way of thinking is it gets in our own way, but once everyone sees it for what it is or has that explanation, like you go, oh shit, that's kind of makes sense. I see what you're getting at. We're constantly we're chasing whatever the
Are
last
we
thing
not on the
was.
same side here? Are we not? See, I don't understand who put up the wall and says it's us and them.
Well,
Because when you do that, you
yes,
create this,
you
and don't take my words and say, oh, well, the border, this and that. Listen, all the experts understand that if we dilute something too much, it's not going to be the original. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is doing it incrementally so we all get to the finish line together. That's what this is about. This is about all of us surviving and thriving, Brian. And there's room for everybody at the finish line. And it's just going to take, look, living without mindfulness and empathy is merely existing. Living in a situation where you're afraid so badly that you've changed how to buy ammo, you just can't get it anymore. Brian, that's no way to live, man. And
That's living in
looking on
fear.
the news and,
It's like
and
when
being
you well,
scared shitless that the Capitol is being taken over.
well,
Oh my
that's the
God.
stuff what I see with everything with the some of the people walking out with just loaded up with full kit and M4s and sidearms and this, and I'm going, you are carrying more of ammo and weapons than I have in certain situations in a horrifyingly
Don't say
scary
kinetic.
combat situation that was could have been extremely deadly for me
Yep.
and was
And people
extremely
died. Your friends
dangerous
died.
and you're in the United States carrying all that. What the fuck do you think is going to happen right now? What are
Yep.
you what in your head you're already going, this is going to escalate to an all-out war. I'm being overrun. Well, that's not where you're at. Like why?
And you
And
have
it's
no
fear.
right to
But Greg,
choose
that's
that.
fear.
Do,
That's
do you know?
fear. That's, you brought it up
Exactly.
earlier. It's fear. It's, I'm
And you're
scared
being a
to run
bully.
to get
You're
all this stuff.
scaring me into following your side of the argument.
And that at a personal level, if you can't sit here because you just brought it up and said, hey, are we, we're all one and the same, we're trying to get to the end state. At a personal level, if you can't, say that that's another human being, or that's a person, or that way of thinking is something that I could easily fall into,
Yep.
then you're wrong, because it is. Like, I don't care what it, like, there, that human behavior is that spectrum, Greg. We all fall in on there somewhere, but we're all on the same flipping line.
Reason for calling it a spectrum. Do you get
Yeah,
what I'm trying to
that's what
say?
I mean.
Exactly.
We're all on there.
Exactly.
Just so, and then our ability to think critically, or look left and right, whatever falls in somewhere, and some can do it better than others. But we're all on there. So if you don't think that that could be you doing that, then you're wrong. If you look at that, and something a police officer does like that and starts a riot in a city, and go, you don't think that that could be you? Sorry, man, you are not looking at this accurately. You
And
could,
it
that
goes
could
back to our
easily be
intent
you.
argument.
And it goes
It
back.
does not matter. That copper never intended to create that outcome. That copper never intended to chase down a person and shoot them in the back and do those things. But Brian, because of the limits of their training and because their brain chemistry took over, it was unavoidable. But it's not unavoidable with the right amount of training and the right places at the right times. Brian, you remember when we tried to take Combat Hunter to TBS and they said, yeah, we think it's a great concept, but we got nowhere to put it. Okay, Brian, that's a problem.
That's
And is that not the same problem that we're hearing today? You know what I'm saying? Hey, I don't have time for this. I don't have
well,
time for this.
that
Make time for it or you're going to pay.
well, but at the same time, like, that same person will say, we don't have time for it, goes, oh yeah, I get it, the gift of time and distance, that makes sense. You want time to make those decisions. You're going like, well, but you just said you don't have time though. Like, what? This is
Yep.
exactly what we're talking
Irony.
about.
Exactly.
And I know that there's a lot of, like, we're not oversimplifying all the different contributing factors to this, right? It's not what I'm
No, we're
trying to
saying
do.
they exist, and we're
They,
giving a
we're,
few examples to
we're saying they exist, Greg,
coalesce.
and we're saying they're not as important as people realize. Like,
Yes.
meaning, if you don't, you're never gonna get ahead of the curve if you're always reacting to what's going on, right?
Yep.
If you haven't been proactive, then you're never going to be. Like, it's a hard concept to understand, to look at it and go, oh, I see this happening, and then what people do, like, told you that was going to happen. It's like, well, okay, if you see this happening, come up with a number of responses to mitigate that outcome that you see happening.
Well,
That's what
okay,
we're talking about.
listen. Major League Baseball, the best batters in Major League Baseball anticipate, they predict where the ball is going to come from before it ever leaves the hand of the pitcher,
You
because
have
there's
to.
not enough
There's not enough
time
time.
between the release of the ball and the swing of
So
the bat. So if that's fundamentally sound, if you can believe that, then you will understand the underpinnings of thinking and critical thinking and being able to predictive analysis
if
on human behavior from a spectrum.
that's a perfect
It's the same thing.
example, and if anyone wants to understand exactly what we mean by that at a literal and then metaphorical sense, there's that documentary on Netflix called Fastball, and that's what they did. They looked at all these different pitchers and batters, and they measured it. And what all these batters would say on a really fast pitcher who had a he had a very, like, 105-mile-an-hour fastball. And what they said was, man, I don't know how he does it, but when you see that ball come in and you swing, it actually, right as it comes across the plate, it rises up. And physics says, not possible, right? That ball starts falling from the time it leaves the pitcher's hand until it hits the catcher's glove. That ball is falling, right? Here's the thing: if it's going 50 miles an hour, it's going to fall before it gets to the plate. If it's going 105 miles an hour, it's not going to fall. But just like you said,
Yep.
that batter made that decision as it was leaving the pitcher's hand. So that means his brain, using heuristics and a whole bunch of other stuff, is anticipating where that ball is going to be. And since
So
it's not
project that
there,
forward.
so guess what? When it's not there because it's 10 miles an hour faster than he's ever hit a ball before, what does it look like to him? man, it rose up as I was swinging.
Yep.
No, it fucking didn't. Your anticipation, you miscalculated where that ball would be, and that's that. But these guys are swearing by it. They're like, dude, I've seen it, I know it, and we're going, and that's the beauty of observation, of understanding physics, of how your brain works, how you make decisions in a short amount of time. I mean, it's all wrapped up just in that story and that analogy that you brought
Yes.
up, and if you watch it, you go, holy crap, you could put that batter on a flippin' stand and he will testify under oath, take a lie detector and pass and go, it rose. I
Spot
saw
on.
it rise. And
So two quick things. One, you're spot on, Brian. But for those thinking people in the audience that aren't knuckle dragger like me, look up our dear friend Dr. Bill Harrison's work, "Slow the Game Down." Another great way that he breaks it down and shows the physics of that. Look up our good friend Pete Carroll and who's with Pete, Jeanette and Jeanette.
Janelle McCauley and Dr. Mike
Yeah, yeah,
Gervais.
yeah. Yeah.
Gervais,
Look
Dr.
up their
Gervais.
great
Yeah.
work because I'll tell you what they do is they're out there looking for the perfect team to field and give them enough information that on the field, even though they're doing a play, they employ critical thinking. Why am I say that? Because life is a game of inches, folks. And if you expect the same type of stuff out of your law enforcement, that they can be arbiters of the law and they can understand decisions and they can shoot and run and stuff, look no further than how much and how long it takes to do that with professional athletes. And some of them are still assholes. Okay. And some of them still make mistakes. And sometimes teams lose games. And if you can understand that, we have to, Brian, reinvent our priorities and say that police work, the people that keep us safe in all these situations, have to be on par with that. If we don't, we're going to keep getting what we have. And I'll point to the historical record of law enforcement as my demonstration.
All right. Well, I
I
think
don't have
that's
to pee again if that's any consolation, Brian. I
that's
feel
good.
good right now. I don't have to take my bio break.
Well, no, I don't want to. I we're we're trying to do our best to bash
We
a
really are.
process or a method or a system without, poking people in the eye, because I don't care. It's not their fault. It's not really, it's ours. Meaning the responsibility lies on everyone. Everyone goes, well, we got to hold people responsible for this. Okay, well, where are you putting yourself in that? You had
Yes.
nothing to do with it. Bullshit. If you're an elected
Remember that
official, if you're
continuum
this,
Brian was talking about. Where do
just
I get on and where do I get
and
off?
you as an individual and how you treat others, look, we're all responsible for this. So why don't we all do this? This, we want to shift blame, which I get. No one wants to take responsibility for their actions,
Yep.
but that becomes a solution at a personal level. Is
Well,
what
let's
can
clean it
I
up.
do
I
about
take
it?
all responsibility. It's my fault. Let's start over and let's make training better by starting with the three big ones: sociology, physiology, and psychology. And then let's go that extra step further and say if it's not relevant when it comes to strategic, operational, and tactical, and it spirals, then guess what? My new way of rating your training, if it doesn't hit on those six, Brian, and it doesn't make me more resilient and move the dial, then guess what? It's no good. And I'll go on record saying that.
Yeah. My thing is, I try to do it this way. If don't buy into the bullshit simple answer. Oh, well, Greg, it's all the left's fault. If these
There
Dems
you
weren't,
go.
doing it, we wouldn't have this. Oh, Greg, it's all
Exactly.
Trump's fault. He is the reason for everything that is wrong in the world. Like,
Yep.
get the fuck out of here with that.
It's
And even
cultural appropriation,
it's
Brian.
whatever. Oh, this
It's
is what it
COVID.
is.
If it
It's
wasn't for
COVID. Well, if it
COVID,
wasn't for pandemic, then we'd
and
be
I
then
tell you,
and all of that is the problem, is these oversimplification, and we want the
amen.
clickbait. We want to blame our situation on someone else. And well, if it was just this, sorry, man, that's the easy way out. If you want to take that, well, first of all, you're probably not listening. You're not
Yeah.
listening to this anymore, so I'm not even talking to you.
And choose not to listen to Brian and I.
and and
Please
and
take
and
us off of your list.
and choose to shut your mouth too,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
don't ever think the easiest thing you could ever do is unfollow us on social media. You don't like what someone's saying, don't listen to
Click.
them. You don't like what you're listening to, go somewhere else. If you're searching just to confirm what you already believe, then fuck off, because it doesn't do anyone any good. Like, if you're not constantly questioning what you're doing and being critical, then there's no improvement. And that's not happening. If we could do that, if everyone did that on an individual scale and said, maybe I'm the problem. I love you, Taylor Swift, I'm not bashing on you, right? Maybe I'm the problem. Then then at scale that helps. And the reason why we don't is just this: we're just getting thrown at it, and I don't we're getting thrown at this crap at us all day long that it's easy to buy into, and these narratives are, and things are always more complicated, and these situations are always more complicated. So don't take the simple answer when someone's trying to sell you tickets or sell you an idea of, oh, it's just this. There's someone's profiting from that, and it's probably not you. So
So Brian, physiologically, you just gave off a great kinesic
yeah,
and a biometric.
my brain
Brian,
hurts.
folks, if you're watching, was so angry that he was rubbing his front of his head, and his prefrontal cortex is on fire right now because he's thinking of all these different angles, and he's frustrated, and that
Well,
comes
I got to
through.
get it out. Yeah.
So let me add this.
Getting it out clearly is difficult, which is why
Yes, yes,
I hate listening to the same shallow, pedantic,
over
low,
and over and
loaf
over. But Brian,
podcasts and
why do they
posts.
limit? Why do they limit? And I don't know the words, but there's like memes and Instagrams and Twitters and all
Yeah.
those other things. I don't understand them. I
Yeah.
don't have any of them, folks. I don't even have FaceTime or whatever that's called that Brian's broadcasting this on. But listen, why do they limit the number of letters on this? We both know that our dear friend Emery Essie uses text and writes novels in text that take me a day or two to read.
Right.
But why are those formats limited? Because people don't care. And Brian, they're sparring. It's like a fencing match. I'll throw this out there and you throw that out there. And let me just have a couple of words to be thought provoking. Okay, every novel I know, if we're looking at Kafka or Tolstoy, or we're looking at a Heinlein, if you like science fiction, they're big books, Brian, because there's a lot of things
Yeah.
we got to say to build
Yeah.
things. You get what I'm trying to say? So I would also say be cautious when somebody is trying to paint a soundbite in your house. Don't worry, be happy, whatever it is. It's the circle of life. Whatever the gosh damn thing you're buying into is probably just a mantra, and it's probably not enough. Probably got to work on that diet. Probably got to lift
Yeah.
a little. Probably got to study a little. Do you see what I'm saying?
You got to
That's
burn some calories, man.
oversimplification.
You got to
And
burn
and
this.
and I would also caution Brian, you don't understand what de-escalation is. And I'm putting that out to our audience. You keep using the word de-escalation and you don't even know the etymology. You don't know what it means.
No, that's a great point. And actually, thanks, Pat. My cousin Pat, hop on here, was following along. He said
Hey,
that it's a tangled, complex problem from hell, like all problems worth tackling. That's the
like
point.
my marriage.
Exactly. Yeah, but
Stop it. Get out of my
that's
marriage.
the point. Is if it is
You're right.
complicated. But he also said, it's 100% the result of the fluoridation of water in the 1960s. So
And non-metallic fillings. It seeped
so
into my brain.
so it's
I'm
lead
with
and
you, Pat.
gasoline. So it and I
Pretty squatchy.
I think no reason to go much further on this, because I get to the
Well,
point too with a lot of this, because I can go and we can talk about
yes.
this from so many different angles, and it frustrates me
There's
to
meat
get
on
it
the
all
bone.
out. But
It's
we're
left for future
but
broadcasts.
we're conflating all that. We just oversimplify everything with, oh well, if we just did this, then that would solve the problem. It's like, no, maybe you need to
Stop.
do some of that, and maybe that might help with one of the contributing factors. But come on, man, like this crap that we keep hearing, and to bring it back to a training aspect, and what we do is in that critical thinking of getting that time and distance. You can give yourself the time. If you're listening to this and you wake up a little bit early so you have a few minutes for yourself in the morning, that's literally all we're talking
Yeah,
about. But
that's
I mean,
it.
right, like that's all we're
That's
talking about
really it,
at scale.
actually. Yeah.
At scale, that's what we're talking about. I mean, are we not? Is it any more complicated than that, than going, you know what, I'm gonna leave the house 5 minutes early so I'm not racing through traffic. That is at a very, very basic level. That's all we're talking about. I mean,
Yep.
these problems can be solved, but I guess I don't want to go too much further on
Well,
it if
here's my
we
thing. Let's
can.
see what kind of reaction we get. Brian and I are willing to talk about this, folks. Tell us what you think. We've got more meat on the bone that we want to add to it. We've got some examples and things we want to talk about, but not if you don't want to listen. So this is
Yeah,
this is the part where you get to tell us what you want to hear.
yeah. No, and I think we'll do something like this again. Stay laser focused on a
Well, if we
specific
don't, if we
particular
don't, we're
area.
both going to explode
Yeah,
because
well,
we
I
yelled at
don't.
each other too much a little bit over the holidays.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know. Yeah, we've had plenty of these heated phone calls before. So we
Yep.
said, why not try and do this and see what comes of it, because it'll help get the message out there a little bit more clear. One, if you're offended by anything we said, then you're the problem. You're the snowflake. I mean, because we weren't
because
poking
you're
on
not
you.
listening.
Well, but,
Because
but that's not our
we're
intent.
not
We clearly
intending
said
to
this
be
is not our
offensive.
intent. We're saying we
Exactly.
blamed it all on the training and the process and the methodology and the framework that isn't in place that should be, and all
And we
these
can
different
fix it.
and we're literally saying all of these contributing factors that people talk about are part of it. But there is no there. You have to build a method to deal with it. You can't come up with here's the shiny thing we need, Greg. Yeah, I got it right here. That's it. We just got this new whiz bang thing, and that'll solve the problem. And
You
if we
got
can
it.
get past thinking like that,
My
and
pedometer makes me healthier, Brian.
yeah,
I've got that new wristwatch, that Fitbit, and it's going to make me smarter and stronger and faster.
yeah, and
I don't have
so
to do a thing. I just turn it
well,
on and change the
at
batteries.
least some of the people follow along on Facebook Live. So do more. Session number 2. Your tangents are then another one. Your tangents are always relevant. Thank you for the Jacqueline, the belligerent bookworm as she's known as, for following along. But yeah. So anyone, again, just for anyone listening, you can follow me on Facebook. The link will be in there, so you can come up live and just throw in your comments. And if they're good, I'll discuss them. If you're way off point, then I'll try and clarify, because we have had that
Or
issue where
insult
people
you and hang up on you.
people completely miss the intent and want to bring up their own
I know.
agenda and comment along, and you're like, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But anyway, we're going to see that
Exactly.
because we're open and transparent and allow anyone to come along for the ride. So thanks for listening. Thanks for
That
watching. For those of you
sounded
on Facebook Live,
salacious. He didn't mean it the
was
way
not
that
meant
came
to
across.
be.
Hey, girls,
Hey,
we'll be back to pick you up
hey.
later. Jesus Christ. He
I didn't
didn't
mean it
mean it
like
like
that.
that. So,
I didn't mean it like that.
but hey, if you're into that, write
put
that too. We'll find out and change the next broadcast. Jesus, Mary.
put the lotion in the basket. So
Sure, I have ID.
can you help me move this couch?
Exactly.
So on that note, I think we'll wrap it up. But
Yeah, now I got to pee again.
yeah, I appreciate everyone for listening in and following along. Send us leftofgreg@gmail.com. Follow us on social media. We're getting more to the Instagram stuff. We're getting better at it in terms of kind of getting the message out there clear, and people are digging what we're posting now. So please follow along. It helps us out a lot. And always, if you have something specific you want us to cover, hit up leftofgreg@gmail.com, and we'll kind of pick it apart from our point of view. So thank you guys, everyone. And don't forget that training changes behavior.